Let's call the October 19th, 2020 meeting of the Dalton City Council to order. Mr. Wall will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the approval of tonight's agenda. One change is we're taking number 10 off the agenda, waiting on further information. Any other changes to the agenda? There a motion we approve the agenda? Motion by Mr. Walls, or a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Goodett. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, like sign. Annalise said aye. Next is the time we allow the public to comment on anything on the agenda or anything else in the city of Dalton on your mind. Let me just call them out. Okay. Bill Weaver.
I am Bill Weaver, citizen of Dalton, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak before you. You have handled part of what I wanted to discuss. I know that by tabling this resolution 2021 with further study, with additional data, with talking to many people, including those who might be negatively impacted by this, that we can come up with a program, a retirement program that will benefit both those on the defined benefit plan and the defined contribution plan without punishing many of our longstanding employees for and losing their expertise and their knowledge and their contributions to the city of Dalton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Ed Painter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm Ed Painter. I reside at 908 West Tyler Street in the city. I dropped off these to each of y'all, and there are a few back there in the back. It's about the tax allocation district. And at the risk of wearing the cliche out, it's deja vu all over again. Almost 5 years ago, within a couple of weeks, it'll be 5 years, we had the same discussion about the same piece of property. There were 3 editorials that I noted at the time from the Daily Citizen News. One on 11/8, the title was Bait and Switch. And just to quote a bit out of it, repeatedly during the campaign, the TAD ballot measures, supporters said they would help redevelop and revitalize blighted areas. That's what people voted on. Second one was well-founded concerns. The members of the Dalton City Council made it the right move when they effectively killed 2 different plans for the allocation districts. That was the 2 plans that still had the northern part in it. And then they were removed. The last one, could the city's TAD plan be even better? Of course, anything can be better. But at any rate, I just wanted to mention or say that we've gone over this. There was a lot. Councilman Cruz probably remembers it. There was a lot of information put out during those 2 months. The final vote was taken on the last day we could have a council meeting, if I remember correctly, around the 29th or 30th. And it was decided by the council members then to wipe it off. And it's like having to drive a stake through it hard, it appears. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions?
Thank you, Ed. Victoria Parker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Victoria Parker. I'm going to remove my mask so I can hear me a little bit better. I have been a resident of the city of Dalton for 8 years, and I've come to appreciate the services that the city provides, both electricity, waste, police, fire, and quite frankly, I'm appalled by the resolution that was set forth, Resolution 2021. I did have a couple of questions I wanted to set forth for the council as to how many meetings were actually held to discuss the resolution before it was placed on today's agenda. Does anyone have that answer?
Jason, how many meetings did I?
Mr. Mayor, the mayor and council met one time, and then a committee of individuals, city staff, probably met 7 or 8 times to discuss the various possibilities. The resolution, keep in mind, would have started the conversation toward what would maybe possibly changed about the defined benefit plan.
Thank you. I would also like to ask what other municipalities have been studied so that you could compare what happened there and then what might happen in Dalton.
Well, as Jason just explained, this resolution was really beginning that process. So this resolution was not putting anything firm, changes or anything else, because we have to do that by ordinance, not by resolution.
And so when was this resolution placed on the agenda?
I guess it was Friday.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it was placed on the agenda Friday, which is a typical Friday before the Monday council meeting when the agenda is published.
Just to make a few more comments, you see a lot of faces in this room today. Before you saw these faces, I believe you were looking at dollar signs. But these are the faces that your dollar signs affect. These faces who have given years of service, their lives. When it rains and that power goes out, who do we call on? Those people with the expertise. When there's a fire and there's a cat stuck inside and the old lady that lives there is screaming for her cat to be rescued, who runs inside? When there's a drive-by shooting, and we've had 2 recently in the city of Dalton, who shows up and runs toward those gunfire? Police officers do. They've given up anniversaries, birthdays, graduations, other very important family events to give that life of service to this city. We've paid for those services up through this point, and when they signed up for the job, they were promised those benefits. You see dollar signs, I see these faces.
Ms. Parker, I know you're not personally going at us, but I beg to differ. I do not see dollar signs because my dad did work at Public Works until he passed away.
And I want to applaud you, Councilman. You were the only person I heard from this weekend that specifically addressed the issues the people were fussing about this weekend. So I applaud you for that. Thank you very much. But I do. One of the purposes you put forth in the resolution was to retain people. But when you're getting rid of those people who have dedicated their lives to this city, anyone that comes into a position with the city is going to wonder, in 5 years, are you going to change that? In 10 years, are you going to change that? When I've given my life of service 20, 25, 30 years, are you going to change that? And that's the concern. That's why you see these faces in here today. So I just want to ask that you seriously reconsider not even putting this resolution back on the agenda. Thank you.
Can I say something before? Just real quick, in terms of looking at the dollar signs versus the people's faces, I think a lot of this too comes of us moving forward and some of those new people that have come in and have been here a long time as well, and understand morale, understand they're all unified. But we also want to make this a more attractive place for them to work. We also want to reward them for all the great things that they're doing. So I think in getting this out there, we're trying to do the best we can to make sure that all parties of all the services that we appreciate the heck out of are taken care of. Personally, I love living in this city. I think the services, I think the people that work for this city are incredible. This is not some political speech. So I can tell you that the intent is not, we just need to save money or cut money at the expense of the people that work so hard for us. So that is not the intent of, I think, any of us looking at this. I think a lot of it has to do with rewarding those employees who also work extremely hard. We want to make sure they're taken care of as time moves on.
I have not spoken to one employee who feels that way. And I would implore you that in the future, if you do something like this, you let out more details about what your plan is before it's set forth. The information given in the resolution is very vague. I've spoken to some experts who handle retirement. They are unclear as to what the resolution even means. And so if your true meaning is to help bring people here, to tell them they're important, to keep them and retain them, I implore you the next time you do something like this, you release more information about what your intent is and what the details are.
Parker, we don't even have that information yet. This resolution was allowing us to go forward with the gathering what the solution can be for this. But understand over 70% of our employees now are in a different plan than this plan that we're talking about as far as the defined contribution plan.
Correct. I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Dr. Biamani.
You for listening to us. Yeah, we all know each other, but for those of us that don't know me, I am Dr. Viamonte, and I thank you for allowing our comments and taking time to study and obtain input from those who could be affected by a change in retirement benefits. I speak to you as a long-term Dalton citizen, over 42 years, as a matter of fact, and one of 5 of your public safety commissioners who feels responsible to you for the organization, policy and procedures, oversight and support of our Dalton Fire Department and Dalton Police Department. But my comments apply to all our city employees. It is important to contrast and balance saving money with having a safe, clean, and orderly city. Freezing defined retirement or pension plans may save funds, but it affects those loyal long-term employees negatively and may lead to vacancies in vital services for our citizens. Our desired, and I share that with you, city expansion and broadening of the tax base brings further need in maintaining law and order, fire and safety protection, a fast responding and training medical assist, infrastructure, and cleanliness. I myself has had to call 911 two times. One when I got dog bit and one when my wife fractured her hip. And I received the fast response, once for the police and the other one from our fire department. We should be looking, actually, I really think this is the cure, the vaccine. We should be looking and striving at offering a competitive total compensation package, that includes retirement, to increase and improve recruitment and retention, including minorities. As we have heard, there is a need to include minorities in our city employees. Cutting back on promises and commitments of a comfortable retirement to our long-term employees sends the wrong message, decreases engagement, and diminishes their sense of being appreciated for a job well done. I am sorry you all have to hear this as a repetition of many other things that were said, but I think there is a cure going forward, and that is to strive and to look for a competitive total compensation package. Thank you for listening in what you do for our city. Please stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Gary Hill.
Good afternoon, Gary Hill. Thank you everyone for allowing me to speak here today, Mr. Mayor and council members. I too reached out to all the council members this weekend. I had one to respond to me, and that's Mr. Goodluck. He's the only one that answered me. And that's appalling What are you here for?
Where did you email me, Gary?
I didn't email you
All right. So.
because I knew where this was going.
You don't know where this is going, but that's okay.
We put this resolution 2021 out without any good studies behind it. Our pension plan now, and I'm on the pension board, by the way, just to let everybody know, have been for about 8 years, chairman of it. I've got a 34-page document here that tells us exactly how we handle our pension plan now, when we can retire, how many years we've got to do. When I was asking questions with some people this weekend, I was told we'll work out the details later. You don't work out the details till you have this document in your hand. And it was presented. Well, I didn't ask for that, but I'm still going to go. I appreciate it. But these folks, they're from every department here at the city. And this lady that spoke for me, I don't know who she is, but I love her to death because she spoke the truth. Call for a fireman to come out and put your house out in the middle of the night. He's in bed. Oh, he'll come up next morning and take care of it. Your sewer's blocked up. Who are you going to call? You going to wait till the next morning call? Power goes out. Yeah, we'll catch you the next morning. That's not the way it works. When we were hired, we were told this was what we're going to give you. Now, I understand the new employees coming in. I understand exactly. But they were come in, they were promised this, and this was what we're giving them. Totally two separate issues. And maybe you can get to them later, but I think we need to honor what was told to us. Some of our folks, 29 and 30 years or whatever, they're going to get hammered on this thing if it gets not this one, but 2021. I want everybody to look at that. I appreciate you again for answering me. I thank you very much. Thank you.
That's all the people that wanted to speak. If I could ask y'all now, because I don't want to be accused of a super spreader, this amount of people is not supposed to be on here. Any of y'all that want to stay and sit in the appropriate places for the rest of the agenda, you're welcome to do that, but please don't gather like this in these huge numbers. Okay?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that the minutes reflect that I'm here remotely because I am COVID positive.
Okay.
And my absence from the meeting is not reflective of my commitment and to the seriousness of the subject matter tonight.
Okay. But number 10, the resolution has been stricken from the agenda, so there'll be no more discussion on this period. So please, like I said, don't gather like this in here if you don't mind. Under new business number 3, Dalton Utilities 2020 bond ordinance for revenue bond issuance of not to exceed $100 million for financing certain electric sector improvements for electric generation, transmission, and distribution. Who do we have on this, Jason? What?
Yeah, Jim Woodward's on there.
Okay.
Mayor, don't forget to approve the minutes as well. Let's keep that up.
What?
Don't forget to get a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, yeah, do I have a motion to approve the minutes that were mailed to you previously?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Cruz, there's a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. And how do we get him up there?
He's up
Oh,
there.
there he is, right there. All right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Again, I'm Jim Woodward, law firm of Great Pennell and Woodward. I'm the bond counsel for the city of Dalton and Dalton Utilities for this transaction. What this is a series bond ordinance. Dalton Utilities is looking to finance certain renovations, additions, extensions, and expansions to its electric generation, transmission and distribution facilities and other facilities that are a system. This is a series ordinance which supplements the master bond ordinance that was approved by the city council in 2017 in connection with a transaction we did for Dalton Utilities at that time. What this is a parameters resolution. It's the first step in the process. It approves not to exceed $100 million in bonds, not to exceed a certain interest rate, and final maturity. And those are basically interest rate of 5%, final maturity of 2041, and maximum annual debt service of $7 million. What we'll do from here, this authorizes us to move forward. We'll work with the financial advisor for this city and Dalton Utilities and the underwriter and go out and market the bonds. And we'll come back to the city council with a supplemental ordinance with the final terms. They'll be within the parameters. This allows us to have all the approval from you to move forward and actually go out to the markets and present them to you guys. And if you like the results, you'll approve the final terms and lock in those rates at that time. And that'll probably be about a month from now if y'all do decide to move forward. But all we'll need at this point is a motion to approve the Series 2020 ordinance, bond ordinance as presented.
So let me make sure I understand this. What we're approving tonight is the ability for y'all to go forward, get pricing and all that. The actual approval of the bond will come back to us in about a month.
That's correct. This is the initial step. It allows us to go forward, but we had to come back in front of this council to get final approval to actually close on the bond deal. That's correct. And we'll have the final terms, interest rates, and everything like that at that next meeting.
Who's got questions? Nobody?
Is there anything you'd like to add, Tom?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Oh, boy. Yeah, I'm Tom Bundros, CEO of Dalton Utilities. What Mr. Woodward just explained is in 2017, the Mayor and Council accepted and adopted a bond ordinance which laid out the terms on the $75 million bond that we issued at the time, excuse me, to cover water and wastewater expenses and some natural gas expense. This bond ordinance now is a supplement to that, and it specifically mentions the $100 million bond issue the utilities looking to do to cover electric generation, transmission, and distribution. It paints, number one, it states that, the interest rate's not to exceed 5%. The longest in the maturation will be no more than the year 2041. And it specifically says that there is not a tax pledge coming from the mayor and council nor the city that supports this debt, that the bondholders themselves, the only recourse or the only place they can look to for payment of the debt service is the net revenues of the utility. And it provides additional documentation for also what's going to be the bond validation. Herbert Poston, our Conasauga District Attorney, will be petitioning the Superior Court of Woodfield County to authorize this as a valid obligation of Dalton Utilities in the city of Dalton. Additionally, there's in here that we're going to covenant and comply to ensure that this is truly a tax-exempt municipal issue. Mr. Woodward, what else did I leave out?
I think you covered it.
Okay. So we're asking the mayor and council to accept this and to adopt this bond ordinance. And as Mr. Woodward just mentioned, when we go to market and we get final pricing, we will be coming back at the November mayor and council meeting and ask that you formally adopt and accept the bond offering.
Any questions of Tom? Your motion on this?
Motion move forward.
Motion by Mr. Cruz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor say aye.
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 Like sign. Number 4, redevelopment potential of 2 proposed tax allocation districts. Bleakley Advisory Group preliminary findings presentation. Gary Mungian. I pronounced that right?
Yeah, he will. Yeah. Mr. Mayor and Council, so we do have Gary Monchon here from the Bleakley Advisory Group. He has analyzed the 2 TADs as you guys requested, and he's ready to discuss that with you now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I must say that this is the first public meeting that I've presented to since COVID started in March, so I picked a good one. I'll try to be quick. As you know, you retained us through the Joint Development Authority to look at 2 potential tax allocation districts. The first step in that process would be is to just present some preliminary findings suggesting what the boundaries might be, what the potential of the TADs might be, and to give you an opportunity to think about that and decide whether or not to authorize us to proceed further on this. The 2 TADs, one would represent an amendment to the existing 2015 redevelopment plan. The second TAD on West Walnut Avenue would require drafting a new redevelopment plan. So what I'm going to just do tonight is to just talk about some suggested boundaries, discuss the amount of tax digest in each TAD, what the potential uses of those funds might be, and kind of just give you a sense of where we are. From this point forward, I hope to get any feedback you might have either tonight or in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, we would receive authorization to proceed to draft the redevelopment plan and the amendment to the existing plan. And we'd like to talk a little bit about the schedule if you decide to move forward in terms of public meetings and when the TADs might be adopted. So I'd like to talk first about the North Bypass area. Again, the city's been presented with an opportunity to annex 2 parcels. They're about 93 acres for a mixed-use development. That development, a portion of that development would be consistent with the recommendations in the Believe Greater Dalton Housing Study. We've been asked to look at what the potential of that area might be if included within a tax allocation district. First step we did was we took an analysis to determine what the potential parcel boundaries of each of these TADs might be. I wanted to give you some options in each case. The area inside the red dashed line is our recommendation of what the maximum size of the TAD might be. And the areas in yellow, if you choose not to include those, could be left out. So we recommend that at minimum the TAD include obviously the proposed area to be annexed into the city. We suggest adding some parcels along River Birch Parkway that have not been developed yet to basically facilitate the potential extension of River Birch Parkway through the Hammond Creek parcel. And we suggest adding the school district parcels to give you some flexibility in the future. Should the city council ever be asked by the Board of Education to fund transportation or other types of investments that might enhance the school site, if funds ever become available to do so. And then the additional parcels inside the city limits have some significant potential over time, could increase in value, could be redeveloped. So that's why they're included. This is the latest iteration of the proposed Hammond Creek development. We've done an analysis of what that project might mean if annexed into the city and what its total value might be at build out. Our preliminary estimate, again, based on the latest iteration of the site plan, is it would have a taxable value of approximately $124 million. The base value of that parcel, those 2 parcels today, is $2.3 million. So the vast majority of that would be increment that could be used for redevelopment purposes. That forecast is based on certain assumptions. That Hammond Creek would be developed as currently proposed. Again, includes the undeveloped lots on River Birch Parkway, which if they are developed in the same manner as the lots that have been developed, it would create about $5 million additional value over the existing value of those lots. We're assuming that half of those other taxable parcels on the south end of the proposed district are developed in the future for sale housing. We're not making huge projections in terms of that acreage. That would add another 29.5 million in digest to the TAD. We just assume that the projects would be completed within 15 years and that property values would appreciate at 1 to 1.5% a year after the project is well underway. And our revenue forecasts assume that millage rates stay the same over the term of the forecast. So based on that, we've forecast, this table shows the total TAD proceeds, which be the percentage of taxes going to the TAD fund. Additional taxes would be going to the general fund of the city, county, and school district. And it ranges from 20 years, if TAD was in existence 20 years, at approximately $31 million in increment. If it goes a full 30 years, it would be $60 million in increment. As you know, the TAD could be dissolved at any point as long as there are no outstanding debt obligations. The rows below that, I've just discounted those revenue streams at different discount rates to approximate what the present value of that revenue stream might be under various financing scenarios. So it is, there's fairly significant potential there, even at the highest discount rate. That's the equivalent of $15 million available to support bricks and mortar construction. So the potential of that is fairly significant. We can talk further about the boundaries and the impact on the city's tax digest with respect to the 10% cap a little bit later. You also asked us to look at West Walnut Avenue, and you are considering that area because the city is considering making some connectivity improvements to West Walnut. The thought being the future TAD proceeds might be one source of repayment for debt service on those public improvements, the purpose of which is to reduce traffic congestion, to enhance commercial property values, hopefully increase sales tax revenues in the process, and to be able to access some landlocked parcels south of West Walnut Avenue. This exhibit shows the connectivity study. I'm sorry, I left out the reference to the engineering firm that prepared this, but this shows where those improvements are, and we kind of use this as a base to figure out what potential tax the TAD boundaries might be. This map in red outlines the red dashed line. Since this would be a new redevelopment area and a new tax allocation district, the redevelopment area would be inside the red dashed line, and the tax allocation district could follow the exact same boundaries. Just to give you some options, we did the areas in yellow potentially could be omitted from the tax allocation district to save some digest. The reason for omitting these, if you decide to do so, is because the value of those parcels is already fairly high and probably not likely to increase very much. One of the interesting things about this TAD, like the North Bypass area, is that a significant portion in the southwest corner of the area is in the unincorporated county, and particularly the outlet mall there. So unless those parcels are annexed into the city in time, that's why they're not included in the redevelopment area. We did look at potentially adding parcels both on the west side of Interstate 75 and also further east toward the city, but it did not look like extending the boundaries other than possibly the right-of-way along Walnut Avenue would make any sense, provide any discernible benefits. And any investments of TAD funds in those areas really wouldn't be consistent with the redevelopment plan for the area. So that's why we didn't go beyond the boundaries shown here. This area includes 77 parcels. The total digest is, taxable digest is just over 83 million. I might have skipped over the other side, the other slide of the North Bypass. The digest there is a little over 10 million. Again, if you wish, potentially removing some of the parcels we indicated, it could go down to 101 acres and 57.2 million in digest as opposed to 83 million. This table shows existing land uses in the area. And I think the primary potential for increasing the digest of this area would be both the incremental increase in value of established shopping centers. And there's approximately 24 acres of undeveloped lots, some of which are contiguous just north of Shields Road. Those 24 acres have very little value currently. And again, making that access connection to Shields Road could enable those parcels to substantially increase in value, possibly support housing, and possibly also help you further the goals of the Believe Greater Dalton housing study. Again, we looked at the potential of this area, which is, we don't have specific projects proposed. It's obviously much more heavily developed. It's more difficult to forecast what the growth potential might be, but we made an attempt to do so. Our assumptions are that those connectivity improvements, at least the connection to Shields Road, would be completed within the first 5 years of the forecast, that would open up the potential of some landlocked parcels. We believe there is a physical potential to increase the existing development within that area, which is about 885,000 square feet of buildings. Currently, that number could go potentially by almost 20% to 1.1 million square feet. So the combination of increasing the value of those landlocked parcels plus adding that additional square footage is where the increment would come from. And we believe there's a potential to increase average building values, which are surprisingly low. We're currently assessed at about $50 a square foot. We forecast that might go up another $10 to $60 a square foot. We think it could be built out in 10 years. And again, we've had an appreciation allowance afterward. So the potential there is somewhat smaller than the North Bypass, but still significant. We project that the digest there could grow from 83 to 111 million by the time build out is achieved. Again, the top line shows in nominal dollars what that might generate over 30 years total. It's about $16 million total, and at various discount rates below that. Since most of the TAD funds would be for public improvements and perhaps financed with public dollars at lower interest rates, certainly something applying a 4% discount rate is probably realistic in that case, which means about $6 to $7 million potentially available to help you finance the public improvements you're thinking about in that part of the city, which again is obviously extremely important in terms of generating sales tax revenue, which in many cases dwarfs the value of the real estate taxes off of retail property.
Could you go back to that last slide?
Sure.
1.3 million after 10 years. That's increased property taxes?
Yes, that is increment. That area pays a huge amount of property tax today. So what is generated today would continue to go to the general funds. This is incremental growth that would go to the TAD fund. Okay. Eligible redevelopment costs. I think that's very important to specify what the eligible purposes for these proceeds are. And the North Bypass, we advise that any incentives that you provide be limited to the types of investments that implement your housing strategy, plus any public improvements to the area to accommodate increased population growth that would be the responsibility of the city long-term anyway. So we would write the plan amendment to those types of eligible activities, and other activities like single-family residential homes or anything like that. Even though it's in the TAD, you are not obligated. This is not an entitlement. You would not be obligated to provide funding for those types of improvements. On West Walnut Avenue, again, it would be primarily to support the public costs of implementing the transportation improvements that you've that you're examining for that area. There could be a set aside of financial assistance to developers to support infill development if that becomes necessary and they make the case to do so, particularly if that's focused on underutilized parcels that would, again, potentially help you implement the recommendations of the housing study and types of investments that generate far more in sales tax revenue than they might cost in terms of TAD proceeds. So those are the kind of our general guidelines in terms of how we would write that section of the reports. The next issue is how does that affect the maximum amount of acreage and digest could be placed in TADs within the city. There is a 10% cap in the state law in terms of the amount of tax digest that could be placed within tax allocation districts cumulatively within any political jurisdiction. Your two existing TADs that were approved in 2015, one of which I understand was dissolved and then recreated and reset at a lower value afterward, is roughly $143 million in digest. About 3.9% of your total is in those two existing TADs. That's based on 2019 data. New data is about to come out, so those numbers will change a little bit. Assuming these two new districts that we've talked about and that all of the parcels, the maximum number of parcels we're talking about are included, that means that the total city digest and TADs would increase to $237 million, which represents about 6.5% of your 2019 digest. Again, the numbers could change marginally. So that still leaves you a cushion of $125 million before you get anywhere close to the 10% cap. And as I mentioned, potentially the parcels we suggest possibly could be left out. You could increase or reduce the amount by another $27 million if you choose to do that. Here's just a table summarizing those numbers in a little bit more detail. So next steps are that you would first authorize us to continue our work to amend the 2015 plan and to draft a new West Walnut Avenue redevelopment plan. I know it's difficult in a meeting setting to get meaningful input, so maybe we could establish a process for us to get input between now and the time we're ready to present a draft report. In terms of scheduling, we're obviously running out of the year in terms of the calendar. So it appears that the most logical date to schedule the first public hearings for each TAD, they would be separate public hearings, would be November 16th. That's about the earliest I can get the redevelopment plans in draft form. The actual vote, should you choose to go that far, we would suggest December 7th, which would leave time for one more meeting should the schedule slip. And from the point we draft the redevelopment plans to the point you schedule a vote, somebody would have to adopt the resolutions necessary to adopt the redevelopment plan and establish the TAD. So I believe that's my prepared remarks. I hope I didn't go too long. Happy to take questions.
I do have one question, and I apologize. I left my glasses in the car and it's kind of hard to tell from the map, but from what I could see, none of this affects any existing residential area. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I think because of location, I think there's a lot of folks that be concerned about that with neighborhoods on both sides being so close to that. Thank you.
Yes, we specifically, at least West Walnut Avenue specifically drew the boundaries to avoid residential areas. There may be one house inside the district. There are a couple of, just to backtrack, there are a couple of homes on Shields Road at the intersection of Shields and what's the Bug Gap that I included in the boundaries simply because there could be intersection improvements or realignment. That's the only reason residential property is in there, just to give you flexibility in the event that you do have to make realignments. But otherwise, no existing residential neighborhoods.
Thank you.
No other questions? So what are you asking for tonight?
Well, again, we were just looking for a general sense that we're on the right track. We would not proceed to actually draft the plans, which is the bulk of the work, without at least getting a sense from council that you think you want to proceed. If there's anything that you've seen in this presentation that you'd like us to look at, if that could be funneled to us through Carl or the city administrator, the sooner we know that, the better. None of this is cast in stone. This is our best thinking. Again, taking a first cut at this, but we certainly would not have any objection to looking at additional parcels we may have omitted, parcels that for whatever reason you think we should take out. We are certainly open to doing that. Making those kinds of comments in a forum like this is difficult, I know, but again, I will be working on this pretty intensively the next 3 weeks to get those drafts ready by the middle of November.
I guess I have one question, and this might be for either Mayor or Jason. The group that we already got doing the study, will this like affect them any? You know, the guys that's doing the 2 intersection studies and.
I don't think it would impact that. It sort of goes along with, it sort of complements that other activity. It's also possible that Mayor and Council, considering the information that's been presented this evening, could study that and formulate questions for Gary going forward, either by email or if we needed to, we could ask him to come back to a finance committee meeting as well. Because as you review the information, you may find additional questions, but and then consider whether you want to give the gentleman permission to go forward tonight to developing the drafts further.
Yeah, and the one other action item, again, I don't know your city ordinances, whether you need a resolution to authorize a public hearing. But again, in the redevelopment powers law, there has to be an advertised public hearing before you can take action, a minimum of one. And there are advertising requirements and time windows. So authorizing, if necessary, to proceed with scheduling a public hearing might be an action item. Again, I don't know your ordinance, so.
I would think so. Correct, Gandy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think what the Blakely Group is asking for is just authorization to proceed with the next phase. So that's the action we'll be taking. We would then have to set up the public hearing after that, if the city is intended on moving forward with the TAF program.
Well, obviously, these two areas have been on our agenda, period. It's just how we're going to redevelop these areas. And the way I understand, Carl, without the TAD, with the apartments out on the bypass, they can't move forward unless it's, or won't move forward without a TAD. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah. But, is everybody still happy to move forward to see? Obviously, this is not the final thing. Let's just move forward. Let them draft some more information study and also y'all's input during this time too.
We need to just make a motion to keep.
I don't know. What do we need to do?
I would just ask for a motion to authorize the continued work of the Blakely Group to formulate the plan, and we'll then need to schedule a public hearing at one time.
Anna Lee, are you still there?
I am.
All right. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Did I hear a motion on this?
It is my understanding though too that the property on the bypass is not gonna go forward without a TAD. So it's my understanding as well.
Hear a motion on this?
I move that we move forward.
Motion by Mr. Walzer, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goodlett. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 5, disadvantaged business enterprise program goals for Dalton Municipal Airport.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I have here the airport's updated DBE program plan and goals for FY21 through 23. This is a 3-year plan in order to participate in federal grants in excess of $250,000 a year. The airport's federal grant participation for FY21 totals $271,250. This plan was prepared prepared by Taffy Pippin Consulting LLC in accordance with DOT 49 CFR Part 26. The plan contains goals, methodology, and DBE participation information relating to work on federally funded projects at the airport. FY21 goal is 5.34% DBE participation, and our 3-year overall goal is 5.35%. The plan was published on the city website and sent to the Minority Business Development Agency and the Small Business Administration. The FAA and the airport are receiving public comments on this plan during the month of October for 30 days. Contact info where the public comments are being received is on page 38 of this plan. The plan requires the mayor's signature for approval, and then the FAA will give final approval at the end of the public commentary period. Questions about the plan or DBE registration or participation can be directed to me or by visiting transportation.gov, and happy to answer any questions on that here.
Questions? Is there a motion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Walls, or a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cruz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
Number 6, Resolution 20-19, authorizing the cancellation of Department of Community Development security deed as to owners Alianne Watson and Adele Watson Tibbs for property known as 1126 Richard Street. Jason?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. It's a recommendation for the city to cancel a warranty deed to secure debt that was issued in March of 1989 for Aileen Watson and Adele Watson Tibbs for the residents there. For the loan was for the purchase or rehabilitation of the property, and upon the condition that the owners maintain that property as their legal residence for a period of 5 years. Our investigation by myself and city attorney, coupled with an affidavit by the son of Aileen Watson, verifies that the individuals have met the requirements. This is a typical loan forgiveness process of CDBG grants. At the time, the city had the Community Development Department, which handled that. Typically, these cancellations would have been filed. For whatever reason, this one was not. But we're satisfied that all of the requirements have been met. So this recommendation is for the city to cancel that warranty deed for this, to secure debt.
Any questions? Your motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Cruz, second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Resolution 20-20, accepting donation of real property from Intermark USA, Inc. and Hammer Properties of Dalton LLC and dedication of public right-of-way of a street known as Candlewick Court.
Mayor, 7 and 8 go hand in hand, so I'll describe them at the same time if that's okay. At the last meeting, the city council approved ordinance 20-15, which was to rezone a tract from R2 to R3 on Chattanooga Avenue being developed by Hammer Properties as per the packet, as per the plat in the packet. A condition of that approval, however, was that the rear alley serve as the primary point of access for the 7 lots. And so a condition of the rezoning was that the developer would deed the city 15-foot tract to be able to have that pavement width in the public right-of-way. This resolution is to accept the donation from Hammer Properties and Intermark USA and dedicate it as right-of-way. And also, since the last meeting, we've been working with the fire department and the county GIS department to develop a name for that alley so that the houses can be addressed properly. And that new street name is Candlewick Court. The second item for consideration is a traffic control change for the same street. The pavement width, as discussed at the last meeting, is very narrow. It's only suitable for one-way traffic. And there's a lot of confusion now. It probably already should have been posted as one way, but to do that, we need a traffic control change approved by the mayor and council so that vehicles entering the alley or new Candlewick Court would come in from Chenille Drive and exit on Factory Street.
Any questions? Anna Lee, any questions?
No.
There a motion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Walzer, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 9, fiscal year 20 budget amendment number 6.
Do we need a separate action on the traffic control change?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We need another one?
Follow up.
Need another motion?
Approval on
On the
the,
traffic control
Just on
change.
traffic control, do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Goodletts, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallen, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 9, fiscal year 20 budget amendment number 6.
Yes, Mayor Pennington, this is our budget amendment number 6. It's just to put into adoption various contracts and actuals that have been determined. Under the general fund, we received additional LMIG funding of $400,000 to cover contracts of $731,049 that have been adopted by the council for the Dugout Battle Road slope repair, the DU transfer, and the hotel motel tax. We're reducing those revenue amounts, $471,000 to what will be the actual. Administrative, we have contract services in the amount of $25,000 for investment research and advisory group that was adopted on 9/21, and a contract approved for Jacqueline Killings LLC, $16,500 on 10/4. Those, and then as submitted to the Finance Committee at the October meeting, IT had put before you guys additional equipment and software needed, and you guys reviewed that, so that's $394,250. So we're reducing revenue $71,000, and we're increasing our expenditures $1,167,240. And then the hotel motel tax fund and the capital improvements, just moving money in there or reducing it, and there's no impact on its fund balance.
Questions? Any questions, Annalee?
I'm not sure if this pertains, is in here, this, is that part of this one? The organizational chart?
Yeah, it's the airport.
Okay.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on there twice. You see it?
Guess they think they're two of me.
So that, does that need to be switched? I didn't know if that was part of hers or this one, the way it's in there.
Whose is that? It's on the airport? It's on the airport?
I only have one of those, Tyre, it's under the airport.
No, I'm saying his, it's
Oh,
like
his
he
name's-
worked.
Yeah, he's double on there.
Page.
Have anything to do with what Cindy's talking about?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah.
come back to it, I guess.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if it was yours or not.
Do I hear a motion on number 9?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Goodletts, there's a second. Second by Mr. Wall, in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Can you look at page 70? Can you look at that one to see if we need to make a change in it or anything?
I'm sorry, Bill, I can't hear you.
Page 70, can you look at page 70 in the,
70.
I don't have one. Oh, it's the back page, yeah.
3 votes, he's 2. Yeah, it's Andrews Airport thing.
What does that mean? Oh, I guess what they're saying is there that the mayor must be the reconsideration official. They got the mayor, but then they also got the reconsideration official. Is the mayor the who made this presentation?
Andrew.
For the airport. Is he still here?
He's gone.
I guess that's what they're saying, Gandy. You think that's what it is?
I'm not sure that, Mr. Mayor, I'll have to check.
Yeah, we need to check on that and see what that is. I'm assuming that's probably what they mean by that.
We can check on that and then bring it back before mayor and council, or if you direct, we can have that corrected in the record.
Yeah, okay.
We'll make sure it's correct. Yes, sir.
Any supplemental business to come before this body? If not, I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cruz, second